So today I want to talk about the mindset of a successful software engineer. You might be wondering, okay, what's the reason for this topic? That's because from most of what I've seen, not too many software engineers even discuss it, and the very few that do, I feel like, I don't want to say the wrong advice, but let's just say things that I would disagree with, primarily because in the last 3 years, so much stuff has happened, especially with the progression of AI and just the software world in general, that a lot of the info is outdated. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but who the heck is this guy talking to us about the mindset of a successful software engineer? Tell you a little bit about myself. I started off in robotics, so literally making $0. From robotics, went into UCLA to research the human consciousness. From there, went to NASA as a computer engineer, and then in 3 years' time, went from a junior developer to a software engineering manager, making about $250,000 a year. I quit to found my own company, and that's what I run to this day, IB Analytics. It's an AI consulting firm. So the topic of today's video primarily is going to be, I want to say, 3 mindsets that I have seen across all successful software engineers, whether we're talking about a 9-to-5 route or we're talking the entrepreneurship route. And I guess before we get into defining what a successful software engineer's mindset is, let's first understand what makes a successful software engineer, because people will have various definitions for it. So I think it's first and foremost, let me first define what I mean by a successful software engineer, and then we can get into what makes one. So the way I view success as a software engineer is, first and foremost, it has to correlate with your essentially essence of a software engineer, which is creation. So you need to be creating something, and you need to be creating something that you actually like doing. You like creating it. It helps you grow. It helps you learn. You're not stagnant. You make a decent living from it. You're able to impact countless of lives, and you're just doing a net positive for society. Now, if any one of these is missing, such as you can do all of these, but the thing you're working on you don't like too much, it's not going to be sustainable. Hence why I don't define it as success, because success to me is something that you can do every single day without getting tired of it for the rest of your life. So that's what I define as a software engineer, a successful one at that. Which means whether you're in a 9-to-5 working for a project you're really excited about that contributes to a significant amount of people and you're changing lives and you're making a decent amount of money, that's fine. Or if you're in the entrepreneurship space, you created something else, a product or a service on your own, and you love waking up every day working on it, that's also fine. The commonality between the 3 are mindsets that I have seen across pretty much all shapes and sizes when it comes to, doesn't matter if it's a developer from the US, if it's an LA developer at Facebook, if it's a founder from, let's say, Singapore. Every single person has these 3 mindsets. And let me start from the first one, which I think is the most critical one. The most important one is the ability to understand that you can just do things. So to more fundamentally break this down, I think we have to understand first and foremost the stereotypes of a software engineer. The reason most software engineers fit into this specific stereotype, and what I mean by stereotype is, if you, let's say, saw a software engineer in the wild, right, if you saw them outside in public, most often than not, you would be able to guess, okay, that guy's probably a developer. There's a certain essence to being a developer, right? It comes with certain tropes, it comes with certain stereotypes, and frankly, this does more harm than good, because a lot of individuals, for example, a lot of software engineers believe that the only application that they can make, or the only business that they can start, has to be a software business, a SaaS. They think they don't want to get into a service or any other type of a product, let's say a physical product, because it would be a waste of their coding knowledge. So there's these certain stereotypes that exist in the software engineering space. I mean, they vary in range. One is, let's say, the life of a hermit. Most software engineers are in front of their computers. They don't leave their house, right? They don't like to, quote unquote, network. They're not too familiar with sales or marketing, and they don't really believe in that stuff. They don't like to get involved in office politics. They just want to do their coding work. And there's all this certain stigma that's attached to a software engineer. And the reason the mindset of understanding that you can just do things is so important is because it involves breaking down that stereotype first and foremost. If you have that stereotype about yourself as a software engineer, that the only thing you can do is a SaaS, that the only industry that you can be in is, let's say, the tech industry or fintech, and you don't want to get into blue-collar work or any of this stuff, you are going to pretty much suffer for no reason. So that's why the number 1 mindset you need to have is, first and foremost, you can just do things in this world. You can just send an email to your manager. You can just send an email to the partner of the company asking how to get promoted to the next level. You can just go to your local business and pitch them a service. You can just do things. You don't have to get permission from anybody. You don't have to, do any of that. You literally can just choose at any moment in time to go out, and whether it's asking for a raise, whether it's asking how to get promoted, whether it's starting a business, whether it's trying to pitch to a client, whether it's uploading a video on YouTube, you can just do these things. You don't have to get permission from anybody. It's not like in your 9 to 5 where you have to get permission to take a vacation, right? Whether you have PTO or not. When it comes to the essence of being successful, your success is not dependent on another person. It is solely dependent on you. That is because you can just do these things. So that's the number one mindset that I have seen across pretty much every single successful developer. It's that they understand they can just do these things. They understand at any moment in time, they can put an application, they can learn about marketing, they can learn about sales, they can spend a little bit of time, go through a little bit of pain, and make something of it. And same thing in a 9 to 5 environment. Somebody can, instead of sending regular applications to apply for thousands of jobs, they can choose to reach out to the founder themselves, send them a voicemail, send them an email, cold approach them, possibly find them in person, go and pitch themselves. You can just do these things. There's no set rule as to how you're supposed to do anything in life. There's no set rule as to how you're supposed to apply to jobs. There's no set rule about how you're supposed to start a business. There are no set rules. You can just do these things, and it all comes down to you understanding that you can do these things. If you want to learn more about this, and more specifically how to grow as a software engineer, feel free to book a free call with me down in the description below at codetoceo.com. You'll see it if you go. I'm not going to try to sell you or anything on that call. It will be strictly just an educational as to what you can do right now at this current moment to make a lot more money as a software engineer, more specifically, how you can transition from a 9 to 5 to being an entrepreneur. Now, the second mindset shift that we have to talk about kind of builds off of this first one, and that's that nobody is really coming to save you. What I mean by that is a lot of people that I have seen, especially software engineers, I don't know why them specifically, but they are existing. Nobody is really living. What I mean by that is most developers that I talk to, they might be in good positions, let's say making low 6 figures. They're almost living paycheck to paycheck. If let's say they get fired, they'll maybe have 3 months of living expenses, and then after that they have to find a job. But they're in this not so great place. I mean, they're comfortable, don't get me wrong, but it's not like they have everything figured out. And yet they feel like their primary self is sort of like asleep. Like one day that person's going to wake up and all of a sudden they're going to be this extremely successful person. But that's not necessarily the case. That's not going to happen. Nobody's going to come to save you. You don't have this dormant sort of hyper genius version of you that's going to suddenly pop out in the future and save you from yourself. That's not going to happen. And I think this really stems from primarily just the way software engineers have been conditioned, both in a 9 to 5 environment as well as in university, that you sort of need to ask for permission to do stuff, and that you need to wait for things to happen, right? You take an exam, you wait for the grade to come out, you turn in a project, you wait for it to be graded. If you're doing something, if you're taking, let's say you're working on a group environment, you're working on a group project, you have to wait for other members of the group to kind of work on it together and all these things. So it's always about waiting, and it's always about giving the power away to somebody else. In the classroom environment, it's the teacher because they determine your grade, because at the end of the day, grades are somewhat subjective, especially in software engineering space. You can write a program that works, but there's a certain grade rubric. If it doesn't pass that, it's not going to do well. Same thing in a work environment, right? You can't really act too freely and do what you want to do, primarily because if your boss says, let's do it this way, you can't say, no, boss, I think we should do it this way. You have to listen to your boss. That's just the way the world works. You have to go through the pain, you have to go through the suffering and get to the point that you want to get to, but you can't just live an idle life and exist as opposed to live. Now, I know we kind of talked a little bit about, two more mental models that stem from your inner world, from the perspective of a lot of it has to do with how you view yourself and how you view the world around you and what you define as success and how you're going to go about doing these things. But the third mental model more so has to do with the world outside of you, so your exterior world, and that is that opportunities are everywhere. The third most important mindset that I have seen is the mindset of abundance, meaning there's always a job out there, there's always a client out there, there's always some type of opportunity out there for you. And it doesn't matter how much competition there is, it doesn't matter how many people are competing against you, It doesn't matter how, any of these things essentially come upon. All that matters at the end is no matter how bad of a situation you're in, or no matter how good of a situation you're in, there is a world of abundance. There's always more that you can have. One of the best examples I can give for this is with regards to client acquisition. Most software engineers, their biggest pain point is, if let's say they even have an idea, it's acquiring clients. They believe acquiring clients is so difficult. But that's because most software engineers believe that acquiring clients is so difficult. So if you believe that it is difficult, it is going to be, as a byproduct, going to be difficult. A lot of people do based on what they believe. For example, if I believe that exercise is good for me, I'm going to exercise. If I believe that smoking is bad for me, I'm not going to smoke. Likewise, if I believe that getting clients is difficult for me, I'm going to subconsciously sabotage my efforts in getting clients. Okay? I'm not going to do as much outreach to get clients. I'm not going to put nearly as much effort into my outreach to get these clients. And frankly, this actually does happen, and I've seen it time and time again from literally coaching hundreds of software engineers. Those who believe it will be easy, it's actually much easier. They have success much quicker. Those who believe it will be difficult, it's actually much more difficult. So in essence, the abundance mindset is of utmost importance to have, especially as a software engineer, whether you're in a 9-to-5 environment, whether you're going into entrepreneurship route. That's because with the layoffs coming now and the AI world shifting, it's extremely important for you to understand that there's always opportunity out there. And all you really have to do is just apply more effort and be a little bit more strategic than the average person. And I can tell you, the average person is not strategic at all. So there's not really much competition to it. So these are really the 3 key mindset shifts that I think every single software engineer needs to adapt. And let me just go through them once again. First and foremost, you need to have an abundance mindset. There's always more clients, always more job opportunities. There's always more out there in the world. You simply cannot determine how many opportunities there are because you don't quite understand the scope of the world. There's 8 billion people. All 8 billion people have different lives. They have different complexities in their lives. So next time you think there's not going to be a job, next time you think there's not going to be a client, try to understand the scope of the world and that it really is abundant. Second thing we need to discuss is more so that stereotypical of, oh, I'm a software engineer, I need to do X, Y, Z, I need to make a SaaS. No, you can just do things in this world. You don't have to abide by a particular stereotype or by a particular thing just because you're a software developer. You don't have to dress a certain way. You don't have to act a certain way. You don't have to go into a specific business just because you're a developer. You can do anything pretty much. If you want to go into HVAC businesses, you can go into HVAC businesses. If you want to go door-to-door sales, if you want to do door-to-door knocking to sell your software, you can do that, even though it might be a little arbitrary or it might be a little, out of scope for certain examples. But that's the second point. Break these stereotypes and really try. You can just do things. Understand that you can just do these things. The third thing that I want to discuss with regards to the mindset, it's more understanding that opportunities are everywhere, right? This, of course, we talked about the abundance thing a little bit, but it's also to understand that at its core, whether you're in a 9-to-5 environment, whether you are in a business environment, opportunities are endless. So try to never particularly give up. And in anything that you do, try to put in, once again, as much effort as you can to make sure that you can say to yourself, I did the bare minimum to not fail. In essence, it all comes down to you doing enough where you say, okay, there is fundamentally no way I will fail if I put in this amount of work, right? For some people, it's if I outreach 50 clients a day, I'll get a client. If I outreach to 100 clients a day, I'll get a client. But then somebody come in and say, okay, if I realistically speaking, reach out to 1,000 clients a day, there's no way I don't get at least one in a month, right? So that's the real difference here. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good one.